My grandmother was one of 18 children, and her and all of her sisters quilted. And my great aunt would host the quilting. Everyone in the neighborhood would come together and they would hand stitch the quilts together. And tea and cookies, conversation. It was, about the gathering. And I think that was, for me, was the impetus of starting Textile Tuesdays, is having that sense of gathering that we have done for generations. Just a sense of community, of helping each other out, of supporting each other, of being there for one another.
Welcome to Collide, your Center for Research and Innovation podcast.
A podcast to ignite ideas, creativity, and innovation through dialogue and knowledge sharing. So welcome to another episode of Collide, your Center for Research and Innovation podcast. Today we are sitting in our podcast recording studio, and I'm sitting with two wonderful people who make art kind of like the center of their lives. They kind of like carry this like artistic aura about them, and they also happen to be great friends. I'm sitting with Diana Chisholm and Larry, I was going to mispronounce your last name.
It's okay. Everyone does.
Okay. So can you say that again for me?
Weyand.
Okay.
I know.
Weyand. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people will say Weyand, but it's...
I was completely going to slaughter that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. So welcome to both of you. And we're going to chat about textiles today. Larry and Diana host Textile Nights at the Center for Research and Innovation, and we're just curious to talk to them and for them to share with the community what happens at Textile Drop-In Nights, because it is a success. When you walk by that room, you hear the chatter, you hear the laughter, and everybody leaves in a very, very good mood after Textile Nights. So why don't you just kind of introduce yourselves, tell us about who you are and what brought you to textiles.
So I guess for me, I'll start.
Yeah, sounds good.
I have been working with textiles since a very young age. I grew up in Nova Scotia and we had a 4-H program, so I was always involved in a craft and making things as a young child. And as I progressed through my life, I spent a lot of time making things with women in my family. My great aunt was an avid knitter and attempted to teach myself and my cousin knitting on a multitude of occasions. And then as I kind of traversed through the world, I went to university and did a bit of sciences, and then came to Corner Brook to go to art school and kind of revisited and refell in love with making and fibers and just the plethora of ways in which you can work with material and yarns. And yeah.
Also, I want to mention that Diana is a provincial cross-stitch champion.
Oh my goodness. I did not know there was
part
such
of
thing.
4-H, I think, right? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You got to tell us about that.
So really great cross-stitcher too. I don't think a lot of people know that about Diana, but similarly, I always grew up very connected to textiles on both sides of my family. On my mom's side, they were heavy quilters, and my grandmother was actually a seamstress. And so I always was connected through quilting on that side of the family. And on my dad's side, my grandmother was a rug hooker, but did all sorts of textile arts in general. Rug hooked, but unfortunately, when I knew my grandmother, I didn't. She had dementia, and so I never got to learn from her. And I didn't actually know what rug hooking was. I just always knew that there were rugs around our house.
Okay.
And
Did you ever watch her do it?
No, she forgot how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you saw her products, I guess, her rugs.
Yeah. And when she passed away, and I, it's not to say that my aunt, but my aunt was responsible for taking care of the stuff and didn't really see any value. All Grammy's old rugs, donated them, except for one that she still has, which I am going to go and research this winter, was 2 raccoons on a log. I'm very excited to go see this rug. But anyway, so later in life, I was taking a trip through PEI and stumbled upon a rug hooking studio. And I said, wow, that's my looks like what my Grammy used to do. And they said, you want to learn? And I got to kind of rekindle with rug hooking through the ladies in PEI. And yeah, it just sparked something. And I've been rug hooking and quilting ever since, and just using textile arts as my primary method of art making. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember, Larry, when I first met you, you were up or down the coast in the Northern Peninsula, and you taught a rug hooking workshop
did.
with in I think it was Port Saunders, I believe.
Port Saunders.
Yes.
That was so much
pretty
fun.
neat. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, through learning, I say relearning. I never had learned previously, but learning with the ladies in PEI, I've gotten quite proficient and
That's
now
amazing.
can teach. So that was
Yes.
really fun
That is
workshop
cool.
that we did. Yeah.
So Diana, you gotta tell us about the cross stitching championship. so what does it entail? How does it happen? How did you? Yeah, tell us about it.
So every year in 4-H, it's a really cool program. I think about it often. It's a place where I learned Robert's rules and how to functionally run meetings, which is wild. Because as a teenager, I never thought I would use that, and I use it quite regularly.
Right.
But some of the programs that you could take included crafts and sewing and welding. I learned to weld in 4-H. And those are, all those skills are skills that I often teach
Right.
now. I am by no means a master welder, but I do teach the basics sometimes. And I did always take crafts because it was, again, like a familial connection, but for me, making via like craft or textiles was a bit social.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so every year I took on making a cross stitch and would go to, in my hometown, there's a store, it's called the 5 to $1. It was once upon a time the 5 and 10, and go pick out a cross stitch pattern and proceed to, we had to make 3 things to put in the local fair every year.
Okay.
And so I would have cross stitches that would win ribbons at the local fair, which would then send me to the provincial fair.
Okay.
Which is where I did receive a one-year championship ribbon
I'm very
for
proud
cross
of you.
stitching.
Yeah. Do you still cross stitch?
I can. I don't often.
Mm-hmm.
It's I spend more time quilting and knitting and crocheting.
Okay.
They're all faster than cross stitch. The stitches are so tiny, and it is. I do. I would say that sometimes I'm looking for a project that has a bit more satisfaction in moving forward.
Right.
But recently, I've been helping a friend who wants to do a project, and it's more of a large scale. I'm quite fascinated by. There's a real kind of shift to taking traditional craft and using them in new ways. And a lot of people are cross-stitching in pegboard or on chain link fences now, which is super cool.
Yes.
And it's scaled up in a way that is the work comes together much quicker at that scale.
Oh, right.
Yes. Instead of 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters takes you 20 hours.
Yes. And and as I deal with aging eyes, I'm very aware of the challenge. Right. So Diana, when you introduced yourself, you said a couple words a few times. You said you like making things, and I'm very curious to hear both of your making things journeys, because you're both professional at what you do, and maybe there's people out there listening to us and younger people who may be interested in pursuing a career in the arts, and it's not something we often think about, right? Or not often something that is presented as a successful option, right? So how did you get to where you are? And I guess, where are you at when it comes to, or where are you to when it comes to your careers?
So I spent a lot of it. I think it's really interesting. I've been helping my mom go through a few things when I visit, and she had those kind of school days binders where every year at the end of the school year you're kind of like putting all your kids' mementos into.
Yes.
And it's not something she kept up on, but from like primary school, like every year habitually when we would sit down at the kitchen table, if I look at that now, the question of what do you want to be when you grow up, I always answered artist.
Okay.
And it wasn't a linear journey. So I went through high school and I grew up in a university town and went into a biology and aquatic resources degree. And I started a master's in biochem, and I spent a lot of time with chemistry books in a room by myself. And happened across recruitment ads for Grenfell campus. And sometimes I'll say I did a 180, but it wasn't necessarily a 180. But I was like, if I don't do this now, I'll never do it. And when I left high school, it was really like, I love biology. I really like making things. And which way do you go? And so I went to art school and really worked through my own practice and exploring. When I did my science degree, I did all my electives in the art department, which was really interesting, like a fascinating group of instructors there. But I often, half the classes was like me and part of the football team. Because the once a week classes worked really well with their practice schedule. And yeah, I came here and I had worked in watercolor and traditional arts, printmaking, came here and really fell in love with sculpture and like material and process, which is integral to textiles. And I would say for me that I would often through my art education be questioned about, well, you don't talk about your sciences. You don't you did aquatic resources, but it's never in your arts. But for me, it's always there because the lab and the studio are so very similar. So when I graduated, I had fallen in love with the West Coast of Newfoundland and knew I wanted to be here. And my kind of journey post-graduation was a bit of studio work, but a shift to arts administration and what grew into a love of helping other people do their art and facilitate practices beyond mine, which I think is some of where the roots of Textile Tuesdays came about. And it was really trying to create a regular coming together of people who like to work with textiles of a variety of ages, and not in necessarily specifically a teaching way, but more of a social way. Yes. And it's fascinating to me because when we come every other week here, the space is wonderful. The group that's been coming is growing. There's an array of ages and there's an array of kind of skill level in textiles. But when someone is working on a project or brings something they're having trouble with, everyone kind of puts their work aside and helps troubleshoot it in the loveliest of ways. And in, I guess, full circle, it's led me to a point where I'm coming back into making for myself, and I have a new kind of fairly substantial project that I'm going to be doing in 2026.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna make that happen.
Yeah. And Larry, what about you?
Yeah,
What's your journey been like?
Yeah, I'll mirror Diana. It was not linear at all. I started off with an undergraduate degree in animated film with a specialization in stop motion animation.
Okay.
Yeah. I always loved cartoons, and I thought that was the direction I wanted to go into. After that, I started working as a hand model for kids' toys because I have very tiny hands.
Okay. Very cool.
As an adult, yes.
Now I'm going to watch your hands.
Yeah, I know. They're super small. And I got that job. Yeah, it was super weird. It was for Mega Bloks, which is like knockoff Lego. And my friend had gotten a job doing their in-house ads, and it was going to be a stop motion build of one of their sets. And it was going to go and be built up. And then the lawyers were like, well, you have to have hands that shows it's building it.
Right.
Because if you don't have hands, it sells the impression that the toy is building itself. Mm-hmm. And then they tried with kids, and the kids couldn't sit still enough to do stop motion. And so my friend said, I know someone with tiny hands that can do stop motion.
Oh.
And that's how I got my job.
Okay.
And I worked for 5-6 years hand modeling. And then I was very, very, very tired of working for a big corporation and realizing other people's dreams for capitalism. So I didn't love that. So I decided that I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree. And when I was deciding that, I always had an inclination for textile arts. And like Diana was saying, it's part of my family. And just as an example, my mom's mom, my grandmother, was one of 18 children. And her and all of her sisters quilted. And my great aunt would host the quilting every Saturday. Everyone would come together, the sisters, everyone in the neighborhood would come together, and they would hand stitch the quilts together. And tea and cookies, conversation. It was, about the gathering. But my great aunt was such a perfectionist that once everyone would leave, she would, throughout the week, come back to the quilt, take out everyone's stitches because they weren't perfect enough for her, and then redo them to her exact
That's dedication.
Length of stitches. But then next Saturday would invite everyone back, wouldn't tell them that she had redone the stitches, would invite everyone back. They would all come, tea, cookies, stitch. And it wasn't about,
it was about making something perfect.
It was about gathering people together.
Right. Yeah.
And I think I've always loved that story, first of all, because I relate. But also, I just like the sense of gathering. And so when I decided to do my master's, I decided to do it in fibers and text and material practices at Concordia. And it just all of a sudden came together through material and materiality. There's so much meaning and so much history and so much embedded within every fiber textile technique or every textile material. So it just became a really amazing vessel for talking about whatever I need to talk about, my research, my narrative, my concept. And I think that was, for me, was the impetus of starting Textile Tuesdays, is having that sense of gathering that we have done for generations. And just a sense of community, of helping each other out, of supporting each other, of being there for one another. And that was definitely, for me, why I wanted to do it, for sure.
Right. Yeah. And as you're talking about materials, I want to ask you both this question. So giving you a little bit of background. So I am not a visual artist, and when I think of the word textiles, I'm like transported back to. I come from Latin America, and I grew up, with my clothes being made by either my grandma.
And so beautifully embroidered.
Yes, my grandma would make, or a seamstress would come and make your Easter dress, for example. So I grew up knowing that textiles or cloth came in these big rolls. So you just get this, neatly wrapped cloth or materials, and you go to the store and you buy them, right? So that's my relationship or my perception of what textiles. It's an industry. But you seem to have a very different relationship with that material. So my question is maybe a little bit more academic, or you take it as you want. So what are textiles? Can fishing net be considered textile? Is it only the clothing we wear? So how do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's a great breakdown. It probably starts with fiber,
Yeah.
and then the way in which the fiber is brought together to create the material. So on a bolt, as a cotton woven, as a yarn spun. So, but really like linear fibers that come together in different ways to create material with structure.
Yeah. And I mean, my master's degree, the very intentional title is Fibers and Material Practices.
Oh, yes.
They omit the textile completely, right?
Okay.
So it is definitely one strand that then becomes a bigger thing,
Right.
or strands together that become a bigger thing, which directly relates to how we come together as a community to do Textile Tuesdays too, right? And
Well, and because the root of it is so much material and process, I think it's how our art comes together.
Yeah.
So, like strands of wool that are hooked that become a 3-dimensional bathroom. Yeah. I myself, I have crocheted chain link fence. So like using the process and the material to make a different material. Yeah.
In that sense, it's so interesting because I always think of the origin of textiles. Like it was a more practical use, like to cover. I guess as a humans, we did it to cover and
keep warm.
keep warm and all of that. But then now it's a form of expression. And I discovered that because a long time ago, I had a record label. So we used to we dedicated ourselves to sell records when CDs sales was in declining. So the only thing that we were able to sell in big amounts was T-shirts. And it was rock bands, metal bands. And I discovered that it is because these textiles also express something. And it's a way for people like, I'm wearing this T-shirt of this with the logo of this band, and I'm part of a group of people, right? That talks a lot about myself. It's a way not only to feel part of something, but also to express it and even communicate with others. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we're so connected to textiles. I mean, they are the most closest thing that we have. Clothing is on our bodies a lot of the time. And throughout history, we have always felt, touched, have textiles on us. So we do feel that connection. As a form of self-expression, yes, I think, I mean, it is one of the reasons why I feel that textile arts has been one of the last forms of art to be accepted into the art world.
Yes.
I put that in quotation marks, but because as we all know, textile arts has been art for, since the beginning. At the same time, I think it also started with the idea of embellishment. So embroidery, cross stitch, all of those techniques were not did not stem out of necessity. They weren't. You can't embroider to keep yourself warm. Embroidery is an embellishment. And so as soon as you start thinking about, oh, okay, well, what kinds of processes and techniques are used for self-expression and not just for practicality, then that's when you kind of can envision how textile arts has taken shape as an art form, right? So,
And it's, I mean, your grandmother making the Easter dress, like when families are out and about on Easter, yes, the community knows what family you're a part of, but also I would argue that outside of the dress, people would say, oh, that's Mary's grandmother's stitching.
Right.
Like that's
Yes.
uniquely
Yes.
this lady and her hand, like the stitch almost becomes like a signature, and there's like a uniqueness to whether it's imperfect and not like taken out for perfection, but it is like a signature or an identifier. And then over the years that transitions into like, how do you take merch or a band t-shirt and yes, you maybe have the name of the band and that's an identifier as being a part of a group, but then like really the uniqueness of those t-shirts and like there was a creativity in how to make those t-shirts beyond just the name of a band.
Yeah.
Came to the forefront in terms of promotion, which is really interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Right?
We actually had some t-shirts that had like the country flag, and it was like redesigning like the very first demo tapes covers.
Yeah.
And those were very successful because they were so unique. And we had like, oh, this is just a 50, we only have 50 t-shirts available, right? So it will make it so desirable for people. But I think it's that beyond marketing and stuff, we did it because of that, because we knew that it means something, right?
Yeah.
And we had people like doing those designs by hand. So that's when, for me, it goes beyond practicality to this fully art aspect and approach.
Well, and it's rooted in the community too, in that sense of, I think often there's a trading of skills there too. So like, yes, I make music, but I know some really cool artists and we can come together and like trade our skills for things that we need. And, you know, like in communities, there are people who are seamstresses and there's times where people would trade things from their gardens in exchange for like something being made. And I think like every aspect of that is really rooted in community.
I think also there is a shift in valuing the handmade more recently. My grandmother's generation, I mean, she would sew all the clothes for everyone, but it was at a point, there was a point in history where my mom was embarrassed, fed up with having homemade clothes because there was some value, especially post-industrialization, where if you went out and bought clothes, it was, you know, seen as, oh, it's so fancy, or you can buy clothing. Whereas, you know, if she showed up with a handmade dress, it wasn't perceived as this or that. But there's been a huge shift, especially recently, in valuing these skills and valuing the handmade and valuing the individuality of the artist or the maker and the individuality of those stitches and you know, putting time and effort and energy into making one piece of clothing and you know, going against this fast fashion trend.
Yes.
So I'm very, very happy to see that. I you know, I'm so sad that my grandmother never really got the, you know, she was making clothes, but she never really got that, like, oh, I'm doing something great, right? And it was never really recognized for that. And I still have a lot of the clothes that she made, and I value it so much. It's just too bad that she's not alive today, so I can't tell her. But I think it's such a really great that in recent years we've been shifting towards valuing the handmade.
Right. And I guess things have really flipped, right? Before buying, you know, clothes was a sign of status. Now, like I cannot afford a like tailored dress for myself,
Yeah.
right? It's very expensive.
Yeah.
But you've mentioned this idea of fast fashion, and there are a lot of considerations that would be good to stop and think about. Like the waste, the materials, the lack of relationship with. I buy a shirt or buy something that I like, and then I don't like it anymore. I donate it, right? So there are. I know a student in a Grenfell campus doing a PhD looking at that, looking at the sustainability of the fashion industry or the lack of sustainability.
I think there's a real shift back to the basics, like to slow down a bit. I think was interesting listening to you talk. My mother, when my parents got married, my mother made all of the bridesmaid dresses and the flowers girl dress, but quickly thereafter started a career in IT and was raising a family, and like sometimes sewed Halloween costumes, but just kind of didn't have time.
Right.
And I think fast fashion grew with that faster pace of life and having to be at work for longer than 8 hours, and there is a real kind of swing back into knowing where your clothes come from, knowing where your food comes from, like really just a shift to, in some ways, slow down a little bit, I think.
Now that you mentioned the wedding dresses, in Mexico, where I come from, it was a trend like my wedding dress was made in, I don't know, New York or Europe. And now it has switched to have traditional handmade wedding dresses. And that's so cool because it's not only about the handmade, but also recognizing your identity and your roots and your traditions.
100%. And I think too, recently I was thinking about how we all have these devices and we take so many pictures compared to when it was film, where you were really careful about not wasting. And we take oodles and oodles of photos, but rarely go back and look at them the way we did printed photos. And I do think it just changes, like the kids not learning cursive in school. And I'm like, how are they gonna, because I often joke that I'm 84 deep down inside. Like I've always had a love of reading and I love being in libraries. And I'm like, well, when they go into archives to do research, how are they read? Like it's the digital world has made us kind of a little bit distant from that. And the idea of knowing where things come from, or like not going outside of where you're from for what you need, and learning that history and embedding that culture and not losing it in, again, that, because I think things like fast fashion and the pace of the world in our digital age, there's so many good things that come from that and some time-saving things that come from that, but I think we also lose a bit in it. Yeah. And to know that there's a switch back to like, I want my dress to be made in a traditional way by makers who learn those skills generationally. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I teach textiles at Grenfell, and the first year one of my assignments is pick a textile, any textile, show and tell, but you have to research everything about that one piece. So if it's handmade, who made it? How did they make it? Why did they make it? For who did they make it? If it's mass produced, where was it mass produced? What kinds of fabrics were used to mass produce it? Where did you get it? Where did it come from? What country was it made in? Bangladesh? So by really doing a deep dive into one piece, you get, it's every year it's super eclectic. Most people bring in quilts that their grandmothers have made for them. And a lot of them, because they're in first year, they're high school graduation quilts. Okay. And it's just so lovely because, they said, oh, well, my nan asked me what my favorite color is and what my favorite flower is. And then in six months later, I got a quilt for
Nice.
graduation. And just that tradition of, oh, okay, someone really thought about what your preferences are and gave you a quilt for when you started university. It's just so beautiful and wonderful. And then the other half of this, the class will bring something that has been mass produced and do a deep dive into the working
Right,
conditions
yes.
of people who made it, and really bringing that to the forefront. So we have this mix of this beautiful tradition and gift giving through textiles and material practices. And then on the other hand, right, this very stark contrast of, oh, wait, but we still have so many things that are mass produced that we're buying that are going into landfills. And so we get into that conversation, and it's just a really fascinating assignment.
That is really cool.
But yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to I guess practice every day,
Yeah.
or we're not gonna be doing a deep dive every day, but just to stop and be mindful, to stop our fast consumption and be mindful. Like, I am wearing something mass produced. And so where does it come from?
Yep.
What does it mean? And being critical and thinking about where things come from is a first step to addressing some of these issues.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because often we're looking back, and I'm thinking about, what's very interesting is, I would say on my dad's side, my grandmother wasn't the maker necessarily. She cooked a lot, and she was a florist, and we spent a lot of time in the summer in her garden, but her sister Annie Mae, who never married, didn't have children, but kind of adopted the 27 of us as grandchildren plus a few more. Every year, habitually, you would get a pair of mittens one year for Christmas, a pair of socks the next, back and forth. If you're playing sports, the mittens were made to look like your jersey with your number hand stitched. And now, when I first moved here, my mom and my aunt and I, every time I went home, we worked on a quilt together, which was the first time I had quilted. And so it was a familial effort to make that quilt. But now I have young nieces, and when I go home, the last time I was home, my mom was having a conversation with one of my nieces about her sewing scissors. And how my grandmother had gifted those to her, and how she's taken care of those for, close to 60 years. And my two youngest nieces last year for Christmas, independent of each other, asked for sewing machines. That's what they wanted for Christmas. One of them came running into the house one day and had a little ball of cotton and knitting needles that she had gotten at her great-grandmother's house. And she came running up to me and said, "Can you teach me how to knit? I just want to learn how to knit." And I was like, "Okay, well, what are we going to make?" She was like, "One of those dish rag things." I think that's an easy start. And so it's nice to be able to see forward in that, and that the younger generation really wants to kind of slow down and relearn those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me what happens at Textile Nights. So, and how often does it happen? Why should people come?
So we do Textile Tuesdays bi-weekly, so every second Tuesday. It is a social gathering. We do it every second Tuesday, so it doesn't become something that you have to go to. Although the group lately has really been pushing for weekly.
Yeah, they really love it.
It's not formal, so people bring whatever they are currently working on, and that might be knitting, it might be crochet, it might be sewing. Last week, a lady brought in a tabletop loom for weaving. Christmas ornaments were being made. And it is just a couple of hours every second week to bring something to make, but more so sit and converse. There's really beautiful moments where people bring something that they've been struggling with, and the group kind of comes together to help troubleshoot the problem.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where it's not a tutorial. We're not offering any sort of
Training.
or we're not teaching anything, but between Diana and I, we have enough knowledge and skill to troubleshoot any problem that you may have in the thing that you're working on. So we've had lots of people come in and just been like, I don't know, I don't even know what to do. I'm having trouble reading this pattern. Or just last week with the loom, we were trying to, warp the loom, and we troubleshooted through it. And as a group, as a team, we were able to get the loom on the go. But so it's really fun. It's people come in for the conversation, for the socializing, but also we're just here to help each other. And between the group, we always figure it out. So I think that's
amazing.
It's really lovely.
Yeah, and there's generally tea or coffee on, and a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
A lot of laughter. But it is like last week, the lady who had brought her loom, it's not easy to warp a loom solo, and her husband normally helps her, and he was away, and she was preparing to make some gifts for Christmas, and came in, and so between Larry and myself and her and two ladies who had never touched a loom before and had oodles and oodles of questions, we had a great evening.
Awesome.
Yeah, by the time everyone left, the loom was ready for weaving.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
So Tuesday nights, 7:30 to 9:30. And I remember Felipe Hansted, who used to be here at CRI, used to say, and I don't know if he made that quote up, but he said, come for the tools and stay for the community. So come for the textiles and stay for...
We didn't really even scratch the surface of the tools that are here.
Right, exactly.
We've been slowly collecting basics. So when you come, there's a couple of sewing machines, lots of cutting tools.
Yeah, really nice quilting
threads,
stuff.
Yeah.
Thread.
Wool swifts, crochet hooks now. But yeah, slowly building up those textile resources right up to, the very, very, very interesting digital loom that exists in the upstairs makerspace.
And we will have a follow-up with Megan Sams, who's currently doing an arts residency here at CRI. Megan is getting that loom ready to roll, learning everything about it so that they can be a point of reference.
Yeah, you'll have really good conversation with Megan about the structure of cloth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mauricio, for co-hosting with me today.
Oh, no, thank you. It was a pleasure, and thank you for being here. It has been amazing, and thank you for sharing all these beautiful stories.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for
right.
having
A
us.
little part of you.
Yeah.
So we're signing off for today. Thank you for listening.